All right, you want it, so we're diving deep. Lego City Undercover, the re-release on PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch.
A stack of reviews.
A stack of reviews, yeah. And let me tell you,
oh, yeah.
it's a bit of a wild ride.
Buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up.
Yeah.
So we're talking about that open world action adventure game. It was a Wii U exclusive originally.
Right.
And now it's trying to make a go of it on these new platforms.
Finding a new home.
Yeah, try to find a new home. But the big question here is, does it actually succeed?
Well, if you look back at the Wii U version,
Yeah.
both Game FAQs and Dan Tower, the reviewers were incredibly positive. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah.
were raving about it.
Wow.
The word masterpiece actually gets thrown around, and Dan Tower even calls it genial,
Genial.
which I think is German for awesome.
Okay.
So they both really loved the open world, the
Yeah.
characters, the humor, the whole package.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
So far, so good.
right.
But then
Oh.
things get a little less, I don't know, shiny with the re-release.
Yeah.
Performance issues seem to be kind of the elephant in the room here,
Mm,
especially on the Switch.
mm-hmm.
Both reviews and just tons of user comments mention frame rate drops
Yeah,
that make the game feel a little less than smooth.
less than ideal.
Yeah, less than ideal for sure.
Now, this isn't totally surprising, right? I mean, open world games, they demand a lot from a console's hardware. And the Switch, as fantastic as it is, it might just be hitting its limits.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, those open worlds, they're beautiful and sprawling,
Huh.
but they could really push a system to its limits.
And you have to wonder, like, is this a sign of things to come? You know,
Yeah.
if the Switch is struggling with Lego City Undercover, how is it going to handle, even more demanding open world titles down the line?
Right. It's a good question. And it really makes you think about the long-term viability of the Switch for this genre. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a popular genre. Open world games are not going away.
Right.
So if the Switch can't keep up, that's a problem. And speaking of things that make you wonder, let's talk about this two-player mode.
Oh.
It was a big selling point for this re-release.
Huge.
Huge, yeah. But some of the reviewers, they're not so happy with it. They feel like it was just kind of tacked on, without much thought.
It's just slapped on there.
Yeah. The Game FAQ's reviewer actually says it feels unnecessary.
Really?
Yeah. Because it lacks that cooperative puzzle-solving element
Yeah.
that makes the co-op mode so fun in other Lego games.
Right. Like, you're not really working together.
Yeah. It's like they said, hey, 2 players, it's got to be better than 1, right?
Who's better than, yeah.
And they just kind of called it a day.
Yeah.
But in this case, it seems like maybe they should have focused on making that single-player experience as smooth as possible
Right.
instead of trying to shoehorn in this.
Yeah. I mean, they had a chance to create something truly special with that co-op mode. Like, imagine you and a friend, you're pulling off heists,
That'd be fun.
coordinating your moves, you're using different character abilities to overcome challenges. Like, that could have been so cool. But from what I'm seeing in these reviews and these comments, it sounds like that vision, it didn't really materialize.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity for sure. And then on top of all that, you've got the whole issue of losing that Wii U gamepad functionality.
Oh, right.
That was a pretty unique part of the original. The Game FAQ's reviewer specifically mentions missing features,
Mhm.
like using those motion controls for scanning
Right.
and having the map readily available right there on the gamepad. They argue that it made the Wii U version feel more immersive.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How those specific hardware features can really elevate a game's design. And when those features are gone, it just feels like something's missing,
Yeah.
even if the core gameplay is the same.
Right. It makes you think about the trade-offs that developers have to make when they're porting games to different platforms.
Yeah.
So you've got the convenience of playing on a more modern and more accessible platform. But on the other hand, you potentially lose some of those unique features that made the original version stand out.
Right. It's a tough call.
Yeah, it's a tough call. And then, to make things even more complicated, you've got players reporting completely different experiences with the re-release's performance. Some people are claiming that it runs flawlessly, while others are describing it as unplayable because of those frame rate drops.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild. You've
Yeah.
got people praising the game's smooth performance and others saying it's so bad they're going to wait for a Steam sale.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're playing 2 completely different games.
I know. It really highlights that whole complex interplay of factors that contribute to a player's perception of performance.
Right.
Individual hardware, different software versions, even psychological factors. It's not always as simple as just saying the game runs well or the game runs poorly.
That's true. It's subjective. So that makes it even harder to figure out whether this re-release is actually worth your time and your money.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got this re-release that seems to be holding on to some of that original charm, but it's stumbling with performance issues, a less than stellar two-player mode, and then the loss of those cool gamepad features. So where do we even go from here?
Well, I think the user comments might hold some valuable insights. Let's dive deeper into what players are saying and see if we can maybe glean some more wisdom from their experiences.
All right, so we've kind of established that this Lego City Undercover re-release, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
It is.
But it seems like the user comments, that's where things really get interesting.
What's standing out to you in the comments?
Well, there's a lot of back and forth about the performance.
Yeah.
Especially on the Switch.
Yeah.
It's like some players are having a completely different experience than others.
Right.
You've got like Cedric Tarek saying the game runs smoothly and bug-free, and then others like Maui saying it's unplayable in handheld mode. How is that even possible? Like, are they playing the same game?
It's a good reminder that performance isn't always so black and white.
Right.
There are so many factors at play.
Yeah.
You know, individual hardware and software versions, even just like a player's perception and tolerance for things like frame rate drops.
Yeah.
It's not always a simple case of a game being good or bad in terms of performance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it still makes it hard to figure out what to expect, right?
Sure.
I mean, you've got Shinderu claiming they played for hours without a single frame rate drop, even in multiplayer.
Yeah.
And then you've got Billy Blob saying the issues are so bad they're just going to wait for a Steam sale. It's wild.
It is.
It's like they're playing two entirely different games.
You know, it really highlights the importance of approaching user reviews with a critical eye.
Yeah.
We can't take any single comment as like the definitive truth. It's about looking at that overall picture and trying to like discern patterns and those common threads.
So if we're seeing like a lot of comments about frame rate drops in handheld mode, that's probably a sign that there's something going on there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who plays the game in handheld mode is going to have like a terrible experience.
Right, exactly. It's all about managing expectations and understanding that your mileage may vary.
Okay. One user, Weitenrausch, brings up an interesting point about load times. They're claiming the PS4 version loads almost twice as fast as the Switch version. Could this be related to like the Switch's modular design somehow?
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible that the way the Switch's hardware is structured could impact load times,
Right.
especially compared to like a more traditional console like the PS4.
Yeah.
But, you know, without any official confirmation from the developers, it's all speculation at this point.
Okay. So maybe we file that one under things that make you go,
Right.
But speaking of things that make you go, what about this whole debate over Tin Tower's review score?
Oh, yeah.
They gave the game a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Wow.
And some users are furious. They're saying it should be way lower because of the performance issues.
Well, you know, this kind of taps into a broader conversation about the subjectivity of review scores and the challenge of balancing like objective analysis with that personal experience.
Right.
What one reviewer might consider a minor flaw, another might see as like a deal breaker.
Totally. And then when you add nostalgia into the mix, things get even more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of people who loved the original Wii U version, they're probably more forgiving of the re-release's flaws because they just have such fond memories of that game.
Oh, absolutely. Nostalgia can be a powerful force, and it can definitely influence how we perceive and evaluate things. It's something to be aware of both as a reviewer and as a consumer.
For sure. So how do we navigate this sea of conflicting opinions and figure out what to believe?
I think the key is to avoid looking for a single definitive answer. Instead, we should embrace the diversity of perspectives and try to understand where each person is coming from.
So if someone says the game is unplayable because of frame rate drops, instead of just dismissing their opinion, we should try to understand like why those frame rate drops are so bothersome to them.
Exactly. Perhaps they're like particularly sensitive to visual disruptions, or maybe they're playing a genre where smooth performance is like crucial to the gameplay experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's always a story behind the opinion.
Always.
Okay, I like that. It's about empathy and understanding, not just declaring winners and losers in the comment section.
Right.
But let's dive into some of the specific arguments that people are making.
Right.
Zynga, for example, says Untower's scoring system is absolute rubbish because a game that runs this poorly shouldn't get a 9 out of 10.
Well, it's a fair point. A 9 out of 10 traditionally implies like a level of polish and refinement that might not be present in a game with significant performance
Yeah,
issues.
right. Yeah. But then you have Jerk defending In Tower, saying they prioritize fun above all else, and that those technical hiccups don't ruin the overall enjoyment of the game.
Okay.
So who's right?
I think they both have valid points. It really boils down to what you value most in a game.
Yeah.
If pure, unadulterated fun is your top priority, then maybe you can overlook some technical shortcomings.
Sure.
But if, like, a smooth and polished experience is essential for you to have fun, then those performance issues are going to be a much bigger deal.
So there's no easy answer here.
No.
It's all about understanding your own preferences and priorities as a gamer.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to evaluating games.
Right.
What matters most is that you're aware of the potential issues and make an informed decision based on your own individual needs and expectations.
Makes sense. Speaking of individual needs and expectations, let's talk about that two-player mode. This was a major selling point for the re-release.
It was.
But the comments are full of people saying it's a disappointment. Yeah. So it seems like the main gripe is that it feels tacked on, rather than being like thoughtfully integrated into the core gameplay.
It's kind of slapped on there.
Yeah, like an afterthought. And it's not just about the performance issues, although those certainly don't help.
Right.
The Game FAQs reviewer mentioned that in other Lego games with co-op, you have sections where players need to split up and use their unique abilities to solve puzzles.
Right. You have to work together.
Yeah, you have to work together. And that's just missing here.
And Alan Tower even points out that players can't even ride in the same vehicle together.
What?
It's literally just two separate screens running side by side.
Oh, wow.
Which,
Yeah.
when you combine that with the frame rate issues, it just makes for like a less than ideal experience.
Yeah. It seems like they had this amazing opportunity to create something truly special with that co-op mode. Something that would allow players to like really team up and experience the game in a whole new way.
I know. Imagine coordinating heists with a friend. Each player using their unique character abilities to overcome obstacles and solve puzzles.
Right?
That could have been incredible.
It could have been amazing.
So disappointing.
Yeah, it is. It's a real shame. It's a reminder that simply adding features doesn't automatically make a game better.
Right.
Sometimes less is more.
Absolutely.
Speaking of less is more, what about all this talk about the Wii U gamepad and how much people miss it?
Oh, the gamepad.
The gamepad, yeah. It's kind of a classic case of technology enhancing a game's design in a way that's difficult to replicate on other platforms.
Yeah.
The Game FAQ's reviewer specifically mentions missing features, like using motion controls for scanning
Right.
and having the map readily available on the gamepad. They argue that it made the Wii U version feel more immersive.
It's interesting to consider how different hardware choices can impact a game's design in both positive and negative ways.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered, like, the performance debate, the two-player mode drama, and the nostalgia for the Wii U gamepad. What else is lurking in these comments?
Well, I'm noticing some interesting observations about, like, aspects of the game beyond just those technical controversies.
Like what?
Well, Razer, for example, brings up the music in Lego City Undercover. They point out that, unlike other Lego games based on movie licenses, this one features mostly original compositions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they praise the soundtrack as very well done.
That's a detail that could easily get overlooked. Music plays such a crucial role in creating a game's atmosphere. It's cool that they went the extra mile with an original score.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the game's unique identity, especially
Yeah.
compared to those Lego games based on existing franchises.
And Razer even says they prefer Lego games based on original IPs because it allows for more creative freedom and a fresher experience.
I can definitely understand that perspective.
Yeah.
There's something exciting about exploring a world that hasn't been shaped by, like, pre-existing storylines and characters.
Totally. There are also some comments about the game's humor, which seems to be a highlight for a lot of players.
Humor's always good.
The Vintower reviewer mentions that the cutscenes are filled with movie references, and they rarely laughed so much at a video game.
That's great.
And DataGamer1234 specifically asks about, like, the abundance of movie references, expressing excitement to experience them firsthand. It's a reminder that even amidst all the technical debates, there are still players who are simply eager to enjoy the game for what it is, a fun, lighthearted adventure.
Exactly. And speaking of fun for the whole family, several comments praise the game's suitability for players of all ages.
Yeah. That's always a plus.
CZ even says that the game's difficulty is too easy for them as an older player, but they still recommend it for its great design, humor, and a game world with a ton of discoveries.
It really speaks to the game's ability to appeal to a wide audience.
It does.
Even if the core gameplay isn't particularly challenging, there's still plenty to enjoy in terms of exploration, discovery, and humor.
It's that classic Lego formula, right? Smashing stuff, collecting studs, having a good laugh along the way.
Exactly. It's a winning combination that continues to resonate with players of all ages.
Yeah.
Now, amidst all the praise for the game's charm and humor, there's a comment from Emmy that I find particularly intriguing. They wonder if the varying perceptions of performance could be related to the type of TV being used.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, how could the TV affect things?
Well, Emmy specifically mentions that their TV has a de-judder function.
A de-judder function.
Yeah, it's a feature that attempts to, smooth out motion by inserting extra frames into the video signal.
Okay.
It's often found on TVs with higher refresh rates.
So could this de-judder function potentially, mask some of those frame rate drops, making the game appear to run smoother than it actually is?
It's a possibility. Different TVs have different processing capabilities and ways of handling motion, which could definitely impact how a game's performance is perceived.
But Chris 1981 counters by pointing out that those de-judder features can sometimes introduce input lag, which makes the game feel less responsive.
Right.
So it's a trade-off.
It is. Smoother visuals might come at the cost of, a less responsive gaming experience.
Yeah.
It's another reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to optimizing a game's performance.
It all comes back to, individual preferences and priorities.
It does.
Some people might prioritize those smooth visuals above all else, while others might value responsiveness and low input lag more.
Right.
It's about knowing what matters most to you and making choices accordingly.
And that's where, thorough research comes in.
Yeah.
Reading reviews, watching gameplay videos, even checking out those forum discussions can give you a much better understanding of a game's potential strengths and weaknesses, especially with a re-release like this, where you have that original version to compare it to.
It's about going in with your eyes wide open and making an informed decision rather than just assuming that everything will be perfect.
Exactly. An informed gamer is a happier gamer.
For sure.
Now, we've explored the performance debate, the two-player mode drama, and even delved into the complexities of those review scores.
Right.
But there's one more aspect of this Lego City Undercover re-release that I think deserves our attention.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the elephant in the room. The removal of the Wii U gamepad functionality.
Ah, yes, that. I think we need to take a closer look at how this decision impacts the overall experience, especially for players who are coming to the game for the first time on the PS4 or the Switch. Okay, so we've talked about how the Wii U gamepad, it really enhanced the original Lego City Undercover experience.
Yeah.
Those features, like the motion controls for scanning and having the map right there on the second screen.
It added a level of immersion that's really hard to replicate.
Yeah, and now with the re-release on PS4 and Switch, those gamepad features are gone.
Right.
So how big of a loss is this, especially for those players who never experienced that original Wii U version? Will they even notice?
That's a good question. It's hard to miss something you never had, right?
That's true.
But for those players who are familiar with that Wii U version, yeah, they might feel like something is missing.
The Game FAQ's reviewer, for example, really laments the loss of those motion controls and that convenient map display.
Right.
They argue it made the Wii U version feel more intuitive and engaging.
It raises an interesting question, though. Does losing these features actually change the Lego City Undercover experience? Or is it just kind of like a matter of preference?
I guess it depends on what you value most in a game.
Exactly.
If you prioritize things like streamlined controls and a seamless user interface,
Right.
maybe the re-release's approach is actually an improvement.
Yeah, maybe.
But if you loved the tactile feel of using the gamepad and the way it interacted with the game world, then you might be disappointed.
Definitely. It's a classic example of the trade-offs that often come with porting games to different platforms.
Yeah.
You gain some accessibility, but you lose some of those unique elements that made the original special.
So for someone who's never played Lego City Undercover before, is it worth seeking out that Wii U version just for the gamepad experience?
Yeah.
Or is the re-release good enough?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
The Wii U, while it's not in production anymore, you can still find them.
You can find them around.
online used game stores.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly less convenient than just like grabbing a copy for PS4 or Switch.
Right.
So I guess it comes down to how much you value authenticity versus, convenience.
Right. If you really want to experience like the true Lego City Undercover experience as it was designed,
As it was intended.
then the Wii U version is the way to go.
Right.
But if you're just looking for a fun open world Lego adventure
Yeah.
and you don't mind sacrificing a few, bells and whistles,
Yeah.
then the re-release will probably do just fine.
Yeah. And hey, maybe this whole situation, it'll spark some interesting conversations about, the role of hardware in game design.
Right.
Like, what if this inspires developers to think outside the box a little bit and like come up with creative ways to utilize those unique features of different platforms?
Yeah, maybe we'll see a resurgence of like innovative control schemes or new ways of interacting with game worlds.
Yeah.
Like it.
There's always room for innovation in gaming. And sometimes, limitations can actually breed creativity. Who knows? Maybe the loss of the gamepad will lead to something even better down the line.
That's a hopeful thought.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Lego City Undercover, it seems like the re-release, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
It is.
It brings this beloved Wii U classic to a wider audience, which is fantastic.
That's great.
But it also comes with some compromises. Performance issues, a somewhat lackluster two-player mode, and of course, the loss of those gamepad features.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that there's no such thing as a perfect re-release. There will always be trade-offs.
Always.
And it's really up to each individual player to decide what's most important to them.
Exactly.
Ultimately, the best way to know for sure if you'll enjoy Lego City Undercover on a new platform is to try it for yourself. Read reviews, watch gameplay videos, and most importantly, trust your gut. If it looks and feels like something you'd enjoy, go for it. And if not, well, there are plenty of other amazing games out there waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. And remember, no matter what platform you choose, Lego City Undercover offers a charming open world, a cast of quirky characters, and a healthy dose of Lego humor.
That's a recipe for fun no matter how you slice it. So, we'll leave you with this. What features or gameplay mechanics would you love to see in a future Lego game? Perhaps one that takes full advantage of the unique capabilities of those next-gen consoles.
Oh, imagine the possibilities.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and keep diving deep into the world of video games. And don't forget to share your thoughts and discoveries with us. We're always eager to hear what you uncover on your own deep dives.